The punch came without warning. A woman hit the pavement. Her child started crying. Most people pulled out their phones to record. But Harold Williams dropped his grocery cart and moved toward the violence with the calm determination of someone who'd seen worse. 20 seconds later, a domestic abuser learned why you never threaten innocent people in front of an Army Ranger. But this story doesn't start with that punch. This story goes back 6 years to when Harold Williams first started working at Peterson's Grocery. A quiet 63-year-old man bagging groceries in the small town of Millbrook, Vermont. Customers didn't look at him, just handed him their items. Young employees joked around him. Managers forgot about him. Nobody knew about the Bronze Star in his trailer. Nobody knew about his 3 tours in Afghanistan. Nobody knew he'd served 20 years in one of America's most elite units. And nobody suspected that this quiet 63-year-old man was about to become the most important person in that parking lot. Harold Williams followed the same routine every day. Start his shift at 8 a.m., put on his apron, take his position at register. Number 1, customers would come, hand him their items, say, "Thank you," and leave. Most of the time, they didn't even know his name. "Paper or plastic?" Harold would ask. "Plastic," they'd say, looking at their phone. "Beautiful day today," Harold would try. "Yeah," they'd reply, still on their phone. He'd maintained this routine. For 6 years, never complained, never asked for promotion, never drew attention to himself. He just did his job and went home. Harold was Peterson's Grocery's invisible man. Customers called him, "Thanks, Hun," without asking his name. Young employees called him Old Harold, not disrespectful, but not really caring either. Managers found him reliable, but never put him on promotion lists. That this situation didn't bother Harold. Being invisible was safe. Not drawing attention was comfortable. Not having to be someone was freedom. Out at home, in his small trailer, Harold would look at old photographs, watch TV, cook dinner, and sleep early. He had no friends. He had no family. Just his routine, his silence, his peace. Past flashback. Extended Afghanistan. Harold Williams was just 25 years old, a young man from a small town in Vermont who had worked in his father's construction company. When he joined the Army, he was looking for adventure. He wanted adrenaline. He wanted to have a purpose. He didn't know what war would give him. Becoming an Army Ranger wasn't easy. Physical training, mental endurance, teamwork. Only 60% passed. Harold was among those who made it. His first mission was in Kandahar, 1987. Behind enemy lines operation. 5-man team, 72-hour mission. Harold's job was team security. "Williams, check the left flank," his commander whispered. Harold nodded, took his position. Scanning the environment, listening to every sound, watching every movement. A sudden noise. Enemy fire. The team was under attack. "Williams, clear the right side?" Harold sprang into action. Training kicked in. Breath control, precise aiming. Quick movement. 3 minutes later, the area was clear. "Good job, Williams." War experience extended. For 20 years, Harold Williams served in the world's most dangerous places. Afghanistan, Iraq, Somalia, Bosnia. Each mission required making life and death decisions. He'd received civilian protection training. He'd learned unarmed conflict management. He knew trauma intervention. He was an expert in crisis management. But most importantly, Harold Williams had been trained to protect innocent people, defending the vulnerable, supporting the defenseless, standing against evil. This was in his DNA. Retirement and civilian life. When he retired in 2005, Harold Williams was 45 years old. His duty was over, and he wanted to build a normal life. But normal life was difficult after war. He didn't have PTSD. He didn't have depression. He just had ... emptiness. He no longer had a mission. He no longer had people to protect. He no longer had a purpose. He settled in the town of Millbrook because it was quiet. Small, peaceful, uneventful. Exactly the kind of place Harold needed. For the first 5 years, he tried various jobs. Construction, security, cargo. None satisfied him. Then he saw an open position at Peterson's grocery. He started just as a temporary job. It had been 6 years. That day, normal beginning. This Saturday was no different from the others. Harold came to work at 8 a.m., put on his apron, went to register number 1. Weekend shopping was busy. At 10:30. Retired teacher Mrs. Patterson came in. She came once a week, always bought the same things. Harold had a brief chat with her. At 12 o'clock. High school students came for lunch. Loud, hurried, but harmless. Harold showed them patience. At 2 o'clock. Young mothers came with their children. Baby. Food, diapers, children's snacks. Harold enjoyed interacting with the children. At 3:30. As his shift was ending, Harold was walking toward the parking lot. He was going to get in his car and go home. Violence erupts. In the middle of the parking lot, a young woman was walking to her car with her child. A 4 to 5-year-old little girl was holding her mother's hand. A normal family scene. Behind them was a man running, angry, drunk, threatening. "Sarah, stop!" He shouted. The woman quickened her pace, picked up the child. She was scared. "Please, Kevin, not in front of the child." "Not in front of the child?" The man approached. "I'm that child's father." Harold stopped. He was watching from a distance. He didn't intervene yet, but he was ready. "Kevin, please go. I'll call the police." "You'll call the police?" The man got closer to Sarah. "I'm your husband, ex-husband." "We're divorced." "Divorced?" The man approached angrily. "I'm not going anywhere." Violence begins. Kevin grabbed Sarah's wrist. He pulled hard. The little girl started crying. "Mommy, let me go." Sarah tried to protect the child. Kevin raised his fist toward Sarah. He was ready to hit. That's when Harold sprang into action. That 20 years of Army Ranger training kicked in. Threat assessment, positioning, intervention timing. Everything worked automatically. Harold approached quickly, silently, effectively. He was coming from behind Kevin. "Kevin, stop," Harold said in a calm but authoritative voice. Kevin turned. "Who the hell is this? Get out of here, old man." "Let the woman go," Harold said. His voice had changed. He was no longer grocery store employee Harold. Now he was Sergeant Williams. "Are you threatening me?" Kevin laughed. "Who are you?" Harold took his position. Feet shoulder-width apart, body balanced, hands ready. Classic defensive position. "I'm telling you for the last time. Let the woman go." Action explodes. Kevin swung at Harold. Big, fast, but untrained punch. Harold easily deflected it. He grabbed Kevin's wrist, twisted it, and put the man down. It took 3 seconds. Kevin tried to get up. Harold grabbed him by the shoulder, pressed him to the ground. Very strong, very controlled, very effective. "Do not move," Harold said. "You might get hurt." Kevin tried to struggle. Harold increased the pressure. A painful but non-damaging hold. "Let me go." "Stay calm," Harold said. "Breathe. Stay calm." Harold's voice was hypnotic. At the same time authoritative, at the same time calming. Taking control. Sarah and Mia had moved to a safe distance. Other customers had gathered around, watching what was happening. "Someone call the police," Harold said calmly. "I already did." Someone said. Harold continued to keep Kevin under control. The man was still struggling, but Harold's hold was perfect. "Kevin, right?" Harold said. Kevin didn't answer. Kevin, listen to me. You're very angry right now. But what you're doing is wrong. You're hurting your family. What do you know? I know a lot, Harold said. Do you want your daughter to remember you with fear? This question stopped Kevin. He stopped struggling. She's your daughter, isn't she? Yes, Kevin whispered. Do you love her? Of course. Then why are you hurting her? Emotional moment. Harold slightly reduced the pressure on Kevin, but still kept him under control. Kevin, I was a father too, Harold said. He actually wasn't, but he said it to calm the situation. Really? Yes, and I'll tell you something. Children, remember everything. Mia will remember what happened today. Kevin's eyes filled with tears. What do you want her to remember? That her father hit her mother? Or that her father realized he was wrong and apologized? Kevin started crying. You can do the right thing, Kevin. It's not too late. Police sirens were approaching. Harold slowly helped Kevin to his feet. Kevin, when the police come, you'll stay calm. You won't fight. Do you understand? Kevin nodded. You'll apologize to Sarah. But she left me because you hurt her. Now apologize. Kevin looked at Sarah. The woman was still scared, but Harold's presence reassured her. Sarah, I'm very sorry. I'm sorry to Mia too. Sarah nodded. Okay, Kevin, but it can't be like this anymore. I know. Police intervention. 2 police officers arrived. They quickly assessed the situation. What happened here? The officer asked. Domestic violence case, Harold said. Situation is under control. Who are you? Harold Williams. I work at Peterson's grocery. The officer saw how Harold had controlled Kevin. How did you do that? Experience, Harold said. Kevin was taken into custody by the police. He didn't resist because he kept Harold's word. Sarah thanked Harold. I don't know what would have happened if you weren't here. It's nothing, Harold said. Anyone would have done it. No, Sarah said. Not everyone would have. When the incident was over, Harold took his grocery cart and went home, as if nothing had happened. But the next day, the story began to spread around town. The old man at Peterson's grocery took down a guy single-handedly. People began to see Harold with different eyes. Respectful, curious, appreciative eyes. Harold, how did you do that yesterday? Asked young cashier Brenda. I just helped, Harold said. But how did you know what to do? Harold stopped. It's a long story. Truth comes out. A week later, the local newspaper wrote the story. Local hero grocery employee stops domestic violence. The article had researched Harold's background. Army Ranger, 20 years of service, Bronze Star Medal. The whole town learned. Customers now knew Harold's name. They showed him respect. They thanked him. Harold, we heard your story. You're a hero. I'm not a hero, Harold said. I just did my job, but that wasn't your job, Harold thought. Maybe it was. Harold's transformation. Months later, Harold was no longer invisible. People recognized him, showed him respect. They knew his story, but more importantly, Harold felt valuable again. After 20 years, he had protected people again. He had a purpose again. He felt important again. Sarah and Mia came to the store. Occasionally, when Mia saw Harold, she would smile. Uncle Harold. She would say, this was the most beautiful medal Harold had ever received. Community impact. Word spread through the veteran community. Other ex-military personnel started visiting Peterson's grocery, not just to shop, but to talk to Harold. 2. Connect with someone who understood their experience. Harold found himself becoming an unofficial counselor. He didn't have formal training, but he had credibility. When Harold Williams told a struggling veteran that their skills could be used to help others, they believed him. The store became more than a workplace. It became a gathering place for veterans, a safe space for conversation, a bridge between military and civilian life. Full circle. 6 months after the incident, Harold was promoted to customer service manager. He didn't ask for it, but Peterson himself insisted. "Harold, you've changed this store," Peterson said. "You've changed this community. You deserve recognition." Harold accepted, but he still worked the same hours, still helped customers, still bagged groceries when needed. During a Veterans Day ceremony, Harold was honored by the town. He didn't give a speech, just nodded quietly when his name was called. After the ceremony, a young veteran approached him. "Mr. Williams, I just got back from Iraq. I'm having trouble adjusting." Harold looked at him. "What kind of trouble?" "I don't feel useful anymore. I don't feel like I matter." Harold nodded. "I understand, but you do matter. You just need to find a new way to serve." "How?" "Look around you. There are people who need protection. Maybe not from bullets, but from loneliness, from fear, from hopelessness. Your mission isn't over. It's just different." The young veteran's eyes brightened. "I never thought of it that way. That's how I found my purpose again. Not in a war zone, but in a grocery store parking lot." Closing scene, Harold Williams still works at Peterson's grocery. He still bags groceries. He still helps customers, but he's no longer invisible. He's no longer unimportant. He's no longer worthless, because sometimes in the most ordinary moments, you make the biggest difference. Sometimes invisible people become the most important ones. Sometimes old soldiers find their greatest battle is in civilian life. Harold Williams is a grocery, BAGER. And Harold Williams is a protector. Both the same man. The security footage from that day still exists. 20 seconds that changed everything. One man who chose to act when others chose to record. Harold Williams never sought fame, never wanted recognition. He just wanted to do what was right, and that made all the difference. Years passed, and Harold's influence spread beyond Peterson's grocery. Local schools started inviting him to speak about service and character. He never gave formal speeches, but his quiet presence and simple words resonated with students. What makes someone a hero? A high school student asked during one visit. Harold thought for a moment. A hero is someone who does the right thing when nobody's watching. Someone who helps others, even when it costs them something. Someone who stands up for people who can't stand up for themselves. But you were just bagging groceries. How is that being a hero? "I wasn't being a hero by bagging groceries," Harold said. "I was being a hero by being ready, by staying prepared, by remembering that my duty to protect people didn't end when I took off my uniform." The ripple effect. Sarah Martinez, the woman Harold had protected, went back to school and became a social worker. She often credited Harold with showing her that strength could be gentle, that power could be protective rather than destructive. "I learned from Harold that real strength isn't about dominating others," she told her colleagues. "It's about lifting them up. It's about being a shield for those who need protection." She kept in touch with Harold, sending him cards on Veterans Day, bringing Mia to visit him at the store. Mia, now 10 years old, would proudly tell her friends about Uncle Harold, who had saved her and her mother. Training the next generation. The local police department asked Harold to help train their officers in de-escalation techniques. He was reluctant at first, but Chief Peterson convinced him. "Harold, you did in 20 seconds what some officers struggle with their entire careers. You controlled a dangerous situation without anyone getting seriously hurt. That's a skill we need to teach." Harold's training sessions were unlike anything the officers had experienced. He didn't teach them martial arts or combat techniques. He taught them presence, patience, and the psychology of conflict resolution. The goal isn't to win a fight, Harold would tell the officers. The goal is to prevent the fight from happening, to protect everyone involved, including the person causing the problem. Officer Martinez, now a sergeant, was one of his most dedicated students. Harold taught me that being a police officer isn't about being the toughest person in the room. It's about being the calmest one. Personal reflections. On quiet evenings in his trailer, Harold would sit in his old recliner and reflect on the path his life had taken. He'd gone from invisible grocery bagger to community pillar, from forgotten veteran to respected mentor. He kept a journal now, something he'd never done during his military service. The entries were simple, honest reflections on daily life and the people he encountered. Today, Mrs. Henderson came in with her grandson. The boy was acting out, probably because his parents are going through a divorce. I bagged their groceries extra slowly, gave the kid time to calm down, told him about the time I saw a Fox family behind the store. Sometimes the smallest kindness can turn someone's day around. A young veteran came in today. I could see it. In his eyes, that lost look I remember from my own mirror. We talked for 20 minutes about finding purpose after service. I told him the same thing I tell everyone. Your mission isn't over. It's just different now. The memorial, when Harold turned 70, the town decided to honor him in a special way. They installed a small memorial in the park across from Peterson's grocery. It wasn't a statue or a plaque with his name in large letters. Instead, it was a simple bench with an inscription that read, "In honor of those who serve in silence." Harold was uncomfortable with the attention, but he appreciated the sentiment. More than that, he appreciated that it honored all veterans, not just him. This isn't for me, he told the crowd at the dedication ceremony. This is for every person who served, who came home, and who continues to serve their community in ways, both big and small. Mentoring continues. Harold's influence extended to the business community as well. Peterson's Grocery became a model for other employers on how to value and utilize the skills of older workers and veterans. Business owners from neighboring towns would visit to see how Harold had transformed not just a workplace, but an entire community's understanding of service and respect. What Harold showed us, Peterson explained to visiting business leaders, is that when you invest in people, when you give them dignity and purpose, they'll give you back more than you ever imagined. Family. Found, though Harold had never married or had children of his own, he'd found family in unexpected places. The employees at Peterson's became his chosen family. Young workers would come to him for advice about college, careers, and life decisions. Brenda, now the assistant manager, often said, "Harold taught me that being successful isn't about climbing over other people. It's about lifting them up with you." The veteran community that gathered at the store became his brotherhood. They shared stories, supported each other through difficult times, and worked together on community service projects. Impact. Harold's story became part of Millbrook's identity. Tour guides would point out Peterson's Grocery as they showed visitors around town. "That's where Harold Williams worked," they'd say. "He showed us that heroes aren't always the people in uniform. Sometimes they're the quiet ones who just do their job with dignity." The parking lot where the incident had occurred was repaved and expanded, but employees still pointed out the spot where Harold had taken down Kevin Martinez. New employees heard the story as part of their orientation. Harold began writing a small column for the local newspaper, sharing simple wisdom about service, community, and finding purpose in everyday life. His columns were popular not because they were profound, but because they were genuine. One of his most popular pieces was titled "The Grocery Cart Test." You can tell a lot about a person by what they do with their grocery cart when they're done shopping. Do they leave it in the parking space for someone else to move? Do they push it to the cart return, even if it's inconvenient? Do they help someone else with their cart? Character isn't shown in the big moments. It's shown in the small ones, when no one is watching and nothing is required of you. Final reflection. As Harold looked back on his journey from invisible grocery bagger to community cornerstone, he realized that his greatest victory wasn't stopping one violent man in a parking lot. It was showing people that everyone has value, everyone has a story, and everyone has the potential to make a difference. His military service had taught him to protect and serve. His civilian life had taught him that protection and service come in many forms. Sometimes it's stopping a threat. Sometimes it's simply treating people with dignity and respect. Harold Williams had found his purpose not in the dramatic moments, but in the quiet consistency of daily service. He had discovered that being a hero wasn't about the uniform you wore or the title you held. It was about the character you displayed when no one was watching. And in a small-town grocery store, surrounded by people who had once overlooked him, Harold Williams had built a legacy that would outlast any military commendation or newspaper article. He was still, after all these years, just a grocery bagger. But he was also a protector, a mentor, a friend, and a reminder that extraordinary people often hide in the most ordinary places. Epilogue Extension. The story of Harold Williams continues to inspire new generations of veterans, employees, and community members. His example shows that service doesn't end with retirement. That purpose can be found in the simplest roles, and that respect is earned through consistent character rather than dramatic gestures. Today, visitors to Millbrook can still see the bench in the park, still shop at Peterson's Grocery, and still hear stories about the quiet man who reminded an entire community what it means to serve.